Polsky reporting there for us. Now, in other news, a UN conference on the future of our oceans will be held in Nice next week, co-hosted by France and Costa Rica. Now, oceans absorb 25% of our CO2 emissions. They are home to 1 million species, but they're fighting a war on several fronts. To talk more about this, we can bring in Antonia Kerrigan, who will be attending next week's conference. Antonia, good to see you. Now, this summit will be attended by a number of heads of state, of government, and we're expecting some of them to announce the creation of a new marine protected areas with a view of meeting the 30 by 30 target. What exactly is this all about?
One of the main axes on which we can protect the oceans are by creating safe spaces for nature, if you will. There's a lot of evidence that by withdrawing certain human activities just from small parts of the oceans, you can in fact allow marine species to go there, reproduce and replenish, for instance, fish stocks globally, universally, across the oceans. Now, there's this target that's been set of protecting 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. Currently, we stand at a fairly meagre 8.2%. So that's one of the angles on which we're expecting announcements next week. However, it's worth mentioning that this 8.2% is in many ways protected in name only. Some analyses say only a third of that space is really protected. If you take the French example, France are very proud of having met the 30% objective in their territorial waters. However, bottom trawling persists in 42% of their marine protected areas. And that's why Greenpeace actually recently took action. They chucked extremely heavy rocks into some marine protected areas in the Golfe de Lion in order to sabotage bottom trawling activities. Bottom trawling, of course, is where you have these really heavy nets dragged across the ocean floor. They uproot entire ecosystems, all in search of fish. And of course, that prevents those ecosystems from bouncing back as they need to. 61% of the world's oceans are, of course, international waters. In order for those to be governed, in order for fishing activities to be regulated in there, we'll need to see the High Seas Treaty validated and ratified by more countries. That's another area in which we'll be looking for announcements next week.
Now, another hot topic will be deep sea mining. Ahead of that conference, the French government has been calling for a moratorium of the practice, saying we currently don't know enough about what impacts these could have. Why is this so controversial?
Well, the deep seas are extremely mysterious and unstudied places. Only 1% of the deep sea bed has been seen by human eyes. This is everything between 200 metres and 2 kilometres in depth. Below 400 metres in depth, it's pitch dark down there. Animals and plant species can take hundreds or even thousands of years to mature. So this isn't an ecosystem that you can imagine would bounce back from one day to the next after extremely intrusive mining activity. Proponents point out that these areas are also rich in what are called polymetallic nodules. These contain things like zinc, manganese, cobalt and nickel. Mining companies, some of them argue that these metals are essential to the green transition, that mining has a huge impact wherever you do it, so better far out at sea than on land. Opponents say that digging up tons and tons of seabed sediment cannot be a good idea, that we don't know enough about it yet. Of course, Donald Trump is doing his own thing on this front. He signed an executive order recently in April calling to unleash America's offshore critical minerals and resources, to which the International Seabed Authority are saying, hang back, it's not up to you to decide. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of rhetoric we see next week from different countries.
Yeah, because he wants to do his own thing. And now for years we've been talking about how to tackle plastic pollution in our oceans, but it seems like there's still a long way to go because 20 million tons of plastic continue to make their way into the oceans every single year. This figure is still on the rise. Why is it so hard to get a hold of it?
Well, in 2022, the UN set a 2-year target for coming up with an international, legally binding treaty to reduce plastic pollution in the oceans. However, no deal was found at that last set of talks in December. The reason is that plastic producers, plastic producing lobbies, and of course petrochemical-rich states don't want to see plastic production curtailed. They want to put the whole focus on recycling to rein in this problem, but recycling has failed to deliver. We're only recycling 9% of the world's plastic. Meanwhile, NGOs and high ambition states say that we need to rein in production, of course, at the source. So in short, business interests of plastic are extremely powerful and an agreement for now has been blocked. This is the last high-level summit before the next set of talks in August. So we'll be looking out to see who says what and if some really strong stands are taken.
We'll see what comes out of the summit in Nice. Thank you very much for that, Antonia.